I've had a couple of people ask me about getting into spoon carving and how they should do it and what kit they should get and that kind of stuff. So I thought what I'd do is make a few little bits of film about various things that I've learned. And so I thought I'd start off by showing you some of my kit. So I'm going to do a little bit on the axes that I've got, and I just want to say I'm not an expert, but these are just, I'll just share with you some of my thoughts and experiences, and you know, hopefully that'll be helpful. So when you're getting into spoon carving, the lovely thing about it is you don't really need a huge amount of kit, just probably 3, maybe 4 different tools that you need to use. And the sort of the first thing you need, the number one tool, is an axe, and you need a small axe that you can carve with. So if you went down to your local DIY shop and said I just want a small hand axe, they might give you something that looked like this, and if you tried to carve with this, you would have a lot of difficulty. The problem is, there's a couple of things. One thing is that it's not sharp, and the other thing, if you look at these from the top, the angle of this surface here, the bevel, the angle is too obtuse. It works fine as a splitting axe, so if you get a piece of wood and whack down on the top like that, the grain, this will act as a wedge and force itself in between the wood fibres, forcing them apart, and so it works fine for splitting. But if you're carving, you're trying to kind of slice through with almost a planing action, and it's just not sharp enough to do that. It would just bounce off. You probably could get away with sharpening. I don't know what the quality of the steel is like, so I wouldn't recommend trying to start carving with this. So the axe I started with is this one, and I love this little axe. Dead cheap. It's called the Barco axe. That's the company that makes it, and you see a lot of people using these as their starting axe. There's a couple of things you need to do. Unfortunately, this comes with a bit like this, not very sharp, so you do have to sharpen the axe, and so that's the first kind of issue with this axe, I guess. So what you have to do is reset the bevel. You have to get yourself a file, reset the bevel, and then you have to learn to sharpen, which is a good learning process. A really important part of the game is learning how to sharpen. But I guess that's a little bit of an obstacle if the first thing you've got to do is to change the way your axe is sharpened. So the thing that's nice about the Barco axe is that the shape of the head, you've got quite a nice long bit, which means that you can get a good slicing cut. It does come painted. I don't know why they do it. They paint the handles. They have this orange paint on the bottom half, and so it's a good idea to take that off so that you can get a better grip. I took the orange off the head as well. I think that was a bit of not wanting to show that I'd got the Barco axe, which is because it's kind of cheap. But anyway, I think they're actually really good. So you can get these for about 20 quid, something like that. Sharpen them up, and you know, great stuff. So probably did my first, I don't know, 500 or 1,000 spoons with this axe. So that's one option. Another option, if you're on a budget, is to go for what's called a Kent pattern axe. And a Kent pattern axe is one that looks like this. That's the shape of a Kent pattern axe. Distinctive round shape. These are older axes, so you're usually getting a second-hand axe, and probably just getting the head like I did with this one. Somebody gave me this. I was doing a show and they said, "Oh, I've got an axe in the back of the car, do you want it?" And so they gave me this, and yeah, great stuff. So the great thing about these, dead cheap. You can usually pick them up at car boot sales for a tenner, or maybe a little bit more perhaps. Really good steel. These have usually been hand forged, So what's happened is that the forging process, the beating with the hammer, has lined up the grains in the metal, and that means that when you sharpen it, it's a really nice sharp, keeps a sharp edge. Forgot to say about the Bahco, the steel isn't great. It goes blunt quite quickly. It's quite soft, which has an advantage actually, I thought, because the steel's soft, you get to practice sharpening often, and it's quite easy to sharpen. So it goes blunt, but you get to sharpen it. Whereas this one, the steel seems to me to be a lot harder. So I think these are a good cheap option, but again, you're probably going to have to sharpen them, and you may have to make the handle. So I made the handle on this one out of a bit of ash, and so that's a mission in itself. You're not, instantly going to be able to get carving with one of these. The other thing that I don't like so much is that about the Kent pattern axe is that they're quite thin, and so they don't seem to be quite as effective at when you do want to split some wood apart. Fine for carving, but the kind of bigger cleaving off a piece of wood, they're less effective at, I think. Okay, so those are your two kind of cheap options. If you want to get carving straight away and get a sharp axe, there you can go for straight in and get something that's expensive. I have got an option actually, which is a little bit cheaper, and I'm going to show you that one last. But if you go to an event like Spoonfest or the Bodgers Ball, you'll see lots of people with these axes. And this is a Swedish company called Gränsfors Bruks. They make fantastic axes, but you have to pay for these. So this is their Swedish carving axe, and I think at the moment they're about 150 quid. They come absolutely sharp. They're really good for the job. Actually, perhaps a little bit heavy for spoon carving. I think you can get used to it. That they're great if you're taking off more wood, if you're bowl carving. Some people find them a little bit tiring to use. I found after when I switched to the Bahco after the Gränsfors Bruks, it was a little bit heavier. My arm got tired at first, but I'm actually used to using this one now, and I really like it. It's got a lovely long bit, so you can do slicing, planing cuts. It's got that cutaway piece there, so you can choke right up for accurate work, hold it in different ways. Absolutely brilliant axe, but you have to pay for it. So, is there anything in the middle? Luckily there is, and Robin Wood, who runs the company Wood Tools, makes this axe, and this is a fantastic axe that fits between those in price. I think this is about £50 at the moment. It's a lovely weight. It's got a nice long bit. It's quite similar in shape, I guess, to the Bahco axe, but it comes beautifully sharp and ready to carve. So if you want to not have to mess around with learning to sharpen before you can even carve your first spoon, this is a really good one to go for. You do actually have to learn to sharpen, of course, because you have to learn to maintain your axe. But yeah, that's a really good option. Okay, I hope that's a useful introduction. There are loads more smaller axe makers out there. You can spend a lot of money. You can get into kind of collecting and having all sorts of really beautiful works of art that are out there. But any of these will get you started, and yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy your spoon carving journey. Okay, cheers.